dig right in. Let's dig right in and find some probability in video number 2 on probability, lesson 10.2. So ladies and gentlemen, you did some reading. You took some notes from page 408, and you wrote down the very important thing. Mathematically, how do we find probability? That's right. Probability of some event is equal to the number of favorable outcomes over the number of possible outcomes. You see, we write it to look like a fraction. It's really a ratio, okay, because it's the number of favorable outcomes to the number of possible outcomes, just like a ratio, right? Which means, since it looks like a fraction, we can probably simplify it. That's right. Since it looks like a fraction, we can probably divide the numerator by the denominator, the top number by the bottom number, to make it look like a decimal. And then, of course, we can turn that decimal into a percent. We always write probability as the probability of some event inside the parentheses. And then, of course, favorable over possible. One thing you need to know about probability of an event. Probability can be written, and we already talked about this, B-I-L-I-T-Y. Probability can be written as a fraction, a decimal, and a percent, right? And then, of course, we can do all the math. We do most of the math with it looking like the fraction. We talk about it mostly as a percent. Well, let's go right along and get busy doing so. We're going to find some probability. And I'm just going to put all these up because otherwise, if I don't, I will be writing all over. So, you roll a standard number cube. A standard number cube. How many numbers on a standard number cube? How many possible outcomes? That's right, there's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. What is the probability that you will roll a 5? So how would we write that? That's right, a capital P with a 5. Probability of a 5. Well, what's the favorable number of 5s on a standard number cube? That's right, there's 1. It's 5. And how many possible outcomes? There are 6. And of course, if you divide 1 by 6, you get 0.16 repeating, which is 16 2/3% chance, which means it's very unlikely. If you were to go back to our likelihood table from the first lesson, that's very, very unlikely. It's right between unlikely and 0. So I would say very unlikely that you will roll a 5. You can certainly do so, but it's unlikely. Let's go to number 7. What is the probability you will roll a number less than 3? So how would we write that? That's right, probability less than 3. And when we think about how many outcomes are less than 3, that's right, a 1 and a 2. So that means there's 2 favorable outcomes less than 3. Out of the 6 possible outcomes, we can simplify that to 1 out of 3, which is 0.3 repeating, or 33 1/3%. Any way you choose to write it. You can certainly leave it as looking like a fraction. 8 says, what is the probability you will roll a 2 or a 4? Well, remember, or means we're going to add. So the probability of a 2 plus the probability of a 4, 1 and 1, that means, again, the probability of 2 or 4 favorable number outcomes is 2 out of 6. We have a repeat, 1 out of 3, which is 0.3 repeating. That's 0.3 repeating, by the way. And 33 1/3% comes out to be the same. All right, moving right along, finding more probability. Again, I'm going to put them all up here, otherwise I end up writing all over everything and having to erase. So here we go. It says you pick a card from a standard deck of cards. So let's talk about a standard deck of cards. There are people who are not familiar. There are 52 cards in a standard deck. There are 4 suits. Okay? There's hearts. There's diamonds. There's clubs. And there's spades, which to me looks like an upside down heart. And which means if there's 4 suits and there's 52 cards and you divide that, that means there's 13 of each. There's 13 of each suit. And those cards are ace through king. You pick from a standard deck of cards. 9 says, what is the probability you will pick a diamond? So if we look at diamond, well, there's 13 diamonds in a standard deck of cards, so probability of a diamond is 13 favorable out of 52. And we know that because of what I drew up there a moment ago, that will simplify to 1 out of 4, which is 0.25 or 25% chance, which means it's unlikely. Go back to our likelihood. It's unlikely that we will pick a diamond. Only 25% chance. Number 10, what is the probability you will pick a queen? Probability of a queen. There's 1 queen in each suit. If there's 4 suits, that means there's 4 queens. There's a queen of hearts, spades, diamonds, and clubs. Out of the total of 52 cards. And if we simplify that, that would be 1 out of 13. 1 out of 13. If I do the math on 1 out of 13, that's 0.0769 or 7.7% chance. That's very, very, or highly unlikely that we will pick a queen. It's possible, highly unlikely. Example 11, what is the probability that you will pick a red 8? Well, let's see. Of the 4 suits, we have hearts and diamonds are red. The spades and the clubs are black. So there's going to be 2. Probability of a red 8. There's 2 of them that are red out of the 52 cards. That does simplify 1 out of 26. When you do the math, that's 0.038, and there's other numbers, but they're small, so 3.8% chance. 3.8 is just about half of 7.7 because it's been rounded. It's not exactly, but it is what it is. So 3.8% chance, 1 out of 26% chance that you will pick a red 8. All right. Nice. Let's talk about how we can use probability. How we can use it. It says, hey, the probability of popping a winning balloon at the fair is 3 out of 20, or 3/20. If the board has 100 balloons on it, how many are winning balloons? Now, there's a lot of ways we can look at that. One, it looks like, not probability, it is probability, but this probability question looks like it can be solved using proportions because we have a ratio of 3 out of 20. How many out of 100? Now, it looks like percent proportion, but hey, because it's out of 100, but really we had 100 balloons. So you can use this method, and of course then you use cross products, and you would have 20x equals 300 dividing by 20, x equals 15 winning balloons. 15 of them are winning. Other ways, right? Other ways are to take that 3 out of 20, and you could say that that's 0.15, because if I divide 3 by 20, it's 0.15, multiply it by 100, and you would get 15 again. A lot of ways of thinking about it. That's 2 of the most common. Let's go to our next question. The likelihood of a player making a free throw in basketball is 70%. Again, we can talk about probability in percent. We just did a fraction. Now we're doing it in percent. If a player shoots 130 free throws, how many should he make? Well, you can use a percent proportion on this one, because if you're going 70%, you know that's 70 out of 100. You know there's 100 of the 130. So how many out of 130 is 70%? You can do your cross products, and you can get 100x equals 9100 dividing by 100, x equals 91. So that means you can expect, or the likelihood is to make 91 out of 130. You could also say that how many you're going to make, that is the percent of, and so the percent is 70.7 times 100. Oh, excuse me, not 100, 130. 130. Well, that doesn't look very neat. Better make that so you can read it. Okay, so out of 130, and when you multiply those two together, yep, you get, oops, once again, I'm not writing correctly. 91 is what they would make. Lots of ways of thinking about this using math that we've learned before. And moving on to our last example of the night. 1 out of every 15 students ordered pizza for lunch. Well, that's a lot of pizza. If we have 690 students eating lunch, how many students are eating pizza? Well, the likelihood of, how many students are eating pizza, the probability of eating pizza is 1 out of 15. 1 out of 15 is eating pizza. That's the probability that the cafeteria needs to order pizza sometimes. How many out of 690, right? That's one way of looking at it. You could turn that into a decimal and multiply it. You could do a whole lot of other things. I've shown you many ways before. We're just going to go it this way because it's what we have. So let's just stick with this proportion. The proportions, boy, I'll tell you, proportions can be used in doing a lot of math that we're going to do in the future. And with probability is just one of them. So 15 times x is 15x equals 690 divided by 15. And we would end up with 46 students are probably eating pizza. And, well, how many pizzas would you have to buy if each kid gets a slice? So that's something that the cafeteria would use to do math. And they're ordering pizza and how many they'd need to cook each day. Very good. All right, so that ends this video. You got your last quick write of the night. Quick write number 2. You spin the spinner. And of course, there are a couple questions here I want you to find the answer to. You might want to pause it like we always do, but this time we're going to find probability with the spinner we used in our previous lesson. And we're going to find the probability of 4 different things. Might pause it. Of course, write down questions regarding probability if you have them. Use a question mark or whatever, highlight section of your notes. Quality effort, 45 minutes. I say it every night. You have the choice. You are 100% in control of everything you do. You have the power. You have the power to be smarter. You have the power to be better. It's what you choose to do with that power. All right? Be accountable. Aggressiveness and urgency, using your time effectively. And of course, I can't wait to talk to you about probability tomorrow. See you later.